We've also got other experts now joining us with their thoughts on the Justice Verma recommendations. But before that, we've heard from the man who was working on this report. Let's also hear from Justice Verma on how he feels his recommendations might actually play out going forward.
The police commissioner of Delhi being given a pat on the back for his prompt action by a person no less than the Home Secretary. I was so shocked as a citizen. Now, the least I, putting myself in that place, would have done was to seek an apology for the failure of my duty to protect these citizens whose safety was entrusted to me. Response was expected from all the DGPs who were addressed even separately. There was hardly any response from any one of them. And if that is the attitude of the DGPs, well, I mean, something needs to be done to review the appointment of all those DGPs, which is one of the recommendations we have made.
Justice Verma, they're not holding back, questioning the attitude of the DGPs. If that's the attitude the senior most police officers have, what hope does this committee's recommendations really have? I want to introduce very quickly our guest. We've got Vikas Singh, former Additional Solicitor General, one of India's top lawyers. Joining us on this broadcast also is T.R. Kakkar, very senior police officer. Purnima Advani will give us a perspective from all the women's organizations that are working closely in this area. I want to go to Mr. Kakkar first. The fact that DGPs don't show up, the fact that junior officials are sent, the fact that several of them didn't even bother sending their recommendations, I really don't see the system change itself. You've got a very good body of recommendations. Do you think the police will actually implement any of these recommendations, Mr. Kakkar? Will any of this see the light of day?
I just heard a very senior functionary, Mr. Gopalakrishnan. He's given everything out, to say that what sort of recommendations are being made and why things like the juvenile age not being reduced and the death penalty not being recommended. Well, they are their views. And I also heard Justice Verma saying that the police commissioner was given a pat and all. Well, that is his opinion. And we can't say anything, but that's his opinion. He's very right.
Why don't you answer the question I'm asking you, Mr. Kakkar? I'm concerned about the attitude of the police force. And I'm concerned about the fact that all these recommendations will actually never see the light of day.
Rahul, don't dictate. Yeah? I mean, once you ask a question, you feel that answer should be also according to what you are thinking. That is not a correct attitude, you see. Now the question is, the police is a state subject. DGPs are functioning in the states. I don't think any directive really went from the Home Ministry to all the DGs through the state governments that they must appear before the Verma Commission. If there is no such directive, I'm afraid they will not appear.
Now you're finding some technicality. I'm sorry, Mr. Kakkar, you're finding some technicality on why the DGPs didn't show up. Don't they watch television? Don't they know what's happening in the media? Don't they know the fact that there's a Justice Verma Committee recommendation? You're finding some technicality. It is this attitude that might derail all the recommendations, sir.
Rahul ji, so many things are talked on the television and all that. There is something which is more, it is up to them. It is up to them. We can ask them why they did not appear. But the point now is, there are so many recommendations made. Do we have the infrastructure really to implement those? Let me tell you about Delhi. There are more than 40 police stations which are functioning in small little apartments.
No, but that's the problem. You know, you're already referring to the limitations of the system. I want to bring in Vikas Singh. Again, technicalities are being referred to about why the DGPs didn't show up. It is this attitude that I'm concerned Vikas might actually derail any effort that's being made. This whole report will actually just lie and gather dust. Are you concerned as well? Do you think something will happen, Vikas?
Tell me how.
Actually, Rahul, it's a very important point. If you ask me, policing is really any uniform service, whether it be police or whether it be the army. It is basically a leadership issue. And what kind of leadership you provide to your jawans and to your constables Now, the problem is today,
Delhi,
Justice Verma has made some very fantastic
are very
recommendations with regard to changes in law. But ultimately, who's going to implement these laws? Who's going to, sort of ensure that the people are booked properly in terms of the laws that are made by this country? So, after all, if the policing is not good, if the policing is such that you actually look for, ways of somehow showing that you have settled the matter, you are actually not responsive to the common citizen. You are only bothered about the VIPs. If there is a crime in a VIP's home or a theft in a VIP's home, they will recover the good in 24 hours, or they will provide some substitute within 24 hours. Whereas a common man will have to wait for days to get his case registered. I mean, that's the attitude of the police, and that, according to me, is a purely a lack of leadership which is exhibited. Now, why is that lack of leadership there? Because the political control over the police is so great, the stranglehold is so great, they keep using the police for their own, devious methods. And until the police reforms really truly take place and the police are really taken away from the control of the executive and the politicians, you can't expect the common man getting any relief in this country. Because the only relief that they can get is that you have a responsive police, you have a sanitized police, the police understands the problem, a common man feels confident in going to the police and feeling that yes, the person here is there to protect.
No, but none of that will happen as a consequence of recommendations. That requires a far larger sensitization.
Yes, of course it will. Of course it will.
Which may or may not happen.
But those recommendations have to be implemented, and they will never implement these recommendations.
You are saying they will never recommend the
recommendations. Ultimately, they don't want to lose that stranglehold over the police force.
They don't want to lose the stranglehold because they also, Purnima Advani, Supreme Court directives on ensuring that police reforms are implemented. The governments haven't bothered responding to the Supreme Court. Will they listen to Justice Verma's recommendations, Purnima?
Rahul, can I say it's not that the government has not bothered, but they have consciously ensured that those recommendations should not be implemented. Nobody wants to lose command and control. And even today, my fear is that whereas some of the recommendations would go through because of the public outcry and because of elections coming round the corner after a year, but many of the very significant recommendations and independence of the police are some things which are not going to see the light of the day. And unless and until law enforcement, particularly the police machinery, is made independent, we are not going to be able to really see that justice is done to the common man. In the villages, in rural areas, you hardly have a possibility of getting a complaint registered. An FIR, to register it, it is a real ordeal. Nobody wants to help the victim because there is no victim protection, witness protection policy in place. These are the issues which are really important. Am I with you? Can you hear me?
Yes, of course.
Hello?
Yes, of course.
Yes. What is also very, very crucial, there are some fantastic recommendations, Representations of People Act to be amended. But where would that amendment take place? In Parliament. And none of these parliamentarians would want to hammer their own feet, because how many parliamentarians would survive there if we say that those who have been concerned with crimes against women should not be there?
That's the problem.
I do feel this time, just as after the Mathura case, we did have some significant amendments in the Indian Penal Code. There would be some amendments like increasing the to life imprisonment and having certain minimum standards, minimum years of punishment being introduced. But the crucial aspect of implementation would still have a lot wanting. Another point, Rahul, is I have recently, because of this entire, again the outrage on the rape laws not being amended, I went through the last 1 year of all Supreme Court judgments on rape cases. And I saw that each case took a minimum of 8 to 10 years to reach the apex court. Now for these 10 years, the woman lives a virtual death every day. She's unable to come out. The society, please visualize rural areas. She's unable to come out. Society is not going to look at her very leniently. And whereas the rapist is on bail, he's just roaming around. Now, what is the deterrence that you are going to give to these people? The 24/7 channels thankfully pick up these cases, but then they are languishing for 10 years. And after 10 years, we'll have a small little column in some newspaper, so-and-so case is over and this is what happened, conviction, acquittal. Now this is the entire root of the problem. I think unless the law enforcement agencies, they gear up.
And the law enforcement agencies are in no mood to gear up, Mr. Kakkar. The fact is, the cops have entered into a zone where they like the way things are. It's a comfortable, you scratch my back, I scratch your back sort of relationship with the government and the establishment. There is no incentive to change. There is no incentive to become more professional. And therefore, both Vikas Singh and Purnima Advani not confident that these recommendations will actually have any impact.
It has become a fashion with us these days to point every finger at the police while there are problems lying somewhere else. Police is prepared to do what is required to do. Give them the wherewithal, give them the independence, otherwise how do, when all the time they are shackled by the political control, how are they going to implement? The question is, make them fairly independent, let the fear of the state governments not be there that in case there is increase in crime, registration, we are going to take you to task. The question is, the crime will increase. If the population is increasing, if the problems are increasing in the society, the crime will rise.
Because again, then the onus is on the political establishment to free the police, to allow them to do their job professionally, which the political establishment doesn't want either.
The political establishment will never do it, because ultimately, if you see, Rahul, Justice Verma has made a very good suggestion that a parliamentarian or a legislator, if he is accused, he should demit his position. Yes. Now, I'll ask you today, which party is ready to? No party has made a statement that I will not give a seat. I will not recommend a rapist to contest the election. They are not even ready to do this little bit of saying that if you're accused of a rape offence, we will not, recommend you to contest the elections. Now, that is the least that the political parties could have done in this last 1 month, that this country has, seen this outrage that the people have towards what is happening, the insensitivity to the police. The outrage that you've seen on the street, Rahul, is not basically of that particular incident. That incident was the trigger point. The outrage was because the people feel insecure. The people feel that this crime is rising because of the insensitivity of the police.
True.
The people feel that the police is not meant for the Aam Aadmi. If you see, Rahul, if you go to a district, if there is a good police SP in that district, overnight crime comes down. Overnight you will find that, the places become much more safe and secure. Similarly, in large cities, if a inspector is being posted in a good, sort of place on the basis of some bribe that he is paying for that particular posting, what will he do? He has to earn this from these criminals only. He has to let go of these criminals. That's how he's going to make this money.
True.
If an officer is being posted like this, then what do you expect the police to do? The police is meant to then harass the people and recover the money that they have paid.
There'll be enough people in the system who will find technicalities, who will find some reason or the other for why these recommendations cannot be implemented. Justice Verma has given the clarion call. He says that pressure must be made to bear on the government and on the system and the administration to ensure that these recommendations are implemented. That's the hope that we cannot give up on. I'm going to leave it over there. Vikas Singh, Purnima Advani and Mr. T.R. Kakkar for joining us on the Center Stage Face-Off tonight. Very, very important recommendations being put out by Justice Verma and his team. Now it is important for the Prime Minister and the government to live up to their promise. Mrs. Gandhi herself made this promise. The people of India are waiting, watching and are hopeful that the establishment will now deliver.